My wife demanded I send my 7-year-old daughter to boarding school. She's not really part of our family, just a reminder of your past mistake. Our real children deserve better. When I refused, she sneered, "Choose between that brat and your actual family. You can't have both." So I made my choice. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Throwaway account because this whole situation is still pretty raw, and I don't need my real account tied to this mess. Also, some details changed for privacy, but the core story is 100% real. So I'm sitting here at 2 a.m., can't sleep, and figured I'd finally tell this story because, honestly, I'm still processing how badly I destroyed my ex-wife's life after she tried to destroy my daughter's. Not gonna lie, part of me feels guilty about how hard I went after her. But then I remember what she tried to do to Lily and, yeah, no regrets. This is long, so buckle up. Let me start with some background. I 34 male, work as a union electrician here in Ohio. Good money, steady work, the kind of job where you can actually support a family without killing yourself. My daughter Lily just turned 8. She's the light of my life, seriously. Smart as hell, loves books, draws these amazing pictures that I've got covering my fridge like some kind of art gallery. Lily's mom, Sandra? That's a whole other story. Let's just say Sandra had some serious mental health issues and bailed when Lily was barely 2. Haven't heard from her since, which honestly, probably for the best. I raised Lily on my own for 5 years, and we had our routines down. Every night, I'd read her 3 stories. We'd work on her homework together, weekend trips to the library, the whole single dad thing. Then I met Jessica. Jessica was 29, worked as a marketing coordinator at the local hospital. Beautiful, funny, seemed to absolutely adore Lily from day one. I'm talking bringing her little gifts, playing dress up, teaching her to braid hair. All that stuff I had no clue how to do. Lily was calling her Jess within a month and asking when she was moving in. It felt too good to be true. Spoiler alert, it was. We got married when Lily was 6. Jessica insisted on a big ceremony, wanted Lily as our flower girl, the whole fairy tale thing. I should have seen the red flags when Jessica's mom kept making comments about how challenging it must be to raise another woman's child. But love makes you stupid, you know? Everything seemed perfect that first year. Then Jessica got pregnant with twins. At first, she was excited about giving Lily siblings. But as the pregnancy went on, things started changing. Little things at first. Jessica would snap at Lily for being too loud when she had morning sickness, or get annoyed when Lily wanted help with homework while Jessica was resting. I figured it was just pregnancy hormones. The twins, Brandon and Blake, were born about 18 months ago. And that's when Jessica's true colors started showing. It was subtle at first. Jessica would be exhausted from night feedings and get irritated when Lily wanted attention. Fair enough. Twins are rough. But then she started referring to them as our boys, and Lily as your daughter when talking to other people. She'd post a million pictures of the twins on social media, but barely any of Lily. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I came home from work and found Jessica in Lily's room, with a bunch of pamphlets spread on the bed, boarding school brochures. My stomach just dropped. "What's all this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I've been doing some research," Jessica said, not even looking up. "There's this amazing school about 2 hours away that specializes in gifted children. Look at these facilities." She was talking like this was some casual discussion we'd been having. Like she hadn't just ambushed me with the idea of shipping my 7-year-old daughter away from home. "Jess, what the hell? We never talked about boarding school." "Well, we are now," she said, and something in her tone made my blood run cold. "The twins need stability, Mike. They need their father's attention. And Lily, she'd do so much better with kids her own intellectual level." I'll never forget how casually she said it. Like she was discussing what to have for dinner, instead of ripping my family apart. That night, after Lily went to bed, we had our first real fight about it. Jessica had clearly been planning this for a while. She had application deadlines, visiting schedules, even transportation figured out. The school had an opening for the spring semester. She wanted Lily gone by Christmas. "This isn't a discussion, is it?" I finally asked. "You've already decided." "I'm trying to do what's best for everyone," she said. "The twins deserve to have their father's full attention during these crucial early years. Lily will get a better education. Everyone wins. Everyone except Lily, who loses her home and family. She'll visit on holidays and summers. It's not like we're abandoning her." The way she said it, like Lily was some inconvenient pet we were rehoming. That's when I knew my marriage was over. The next few days were tense as hell. Jessica kept bringing up the boarding school like it was a done deal, showing me more brochures, talking about preparing Lily for the transition. I played along while my mind was racing, trying to figure out what the hell was really going on. That's when I started paying closer attention to Jessica's behavior around Lily versus the twins. And Jesus Christ, once you see it, you can't unsee it. When one of the twins spilled juice at breakfast, Jessica would clean it up with a smile and say, "Accidents happen." When Lily spilled the exact same juice later that week, Jessica made her clean it herself, while sighing dramatically about learning responsibility. Jessica would spend hours reading to the twins, doing voices for all the characters, making it this whole interactive experience. But when Lily asked for a bedtime story, Jessica would hand her a book and say, "You're old enough to read to yourself now." The twins got new clothes every month. Lily was wearing the same outfits from last year, most of them getting too small. I started documenting this stuff, taking notes on my phone, keeping track of the different treatment. Looking back, I think part of me already knew I'd need evidence eventually. But the real gut punch came when I overheard a phone conversation between Jessica and her mother. I'd come home early from a job site and heard Jessica talking in the kitchen. The twins were napping and Lily was at school, so I figured it was just a casual call. But as I got closer, I caught enough to realize they were talking about Lily. "Just can't keep pretending it's the same," Jessica was saying. "When I look at the boys, I feel this overwhelming love, you know? But with Lily, it's like babysitting someone else's kid. I keep waiting for that maternal feeling to kick in, but it never does." "You tried, honey," her mom said. I could hear her voice through the phone. "But blood is blood. You can't force something that isn't natural. Maybe it really would be better for everyone if she went to that school. Mike's being stubborn about it, but I think I can convince him, especially if we frame it as what's best for Lily's education. And if he won't agree?" There was a long pause. Then Jessica said something that made my blood freeze. "Then I'll have to choose what's best for my real family. The boys and I can't keep living like this." I stood there in the hallway, feeling like someone had just punched me in the stomach. This wasn't about education or what was best for Lily. This was about Jessica wanting Lily gone so she could play happy family with her biological children. That night, I started making some calls. First, I called my buddy Dave, who works in family law. Not asking for legal advice yet, just hypothetical questions about custody and divorce with stepchildren involved. What I learned wasn't encouraging. If Jessica and I split up, I'd have no legal right to see the twins. They were her biological children, and stepparents have basically zero rights after divorce. But Lily? Lily was mine, 100%. Sandra had signed away all parental rights years ago when she disappeared. No matter what happened, Jessica couldn't touch my custody of Lily. Next, I called my sister Karen, who's a teacher. I needed to know if there were any legitimate educational reasons to consider boarding school for a 7-year-old. "Mike, absolutely not," she said immediately. "Lily's doing great in school, right? Her grades are good, she's social, no behavioral issues. There's literally no reason to disrupt her life like that unless there are serious problems at home." Problems at home. Yeah, there were problems at home, all right. That weekend, I took Lily to visit my parents while Jessica stayed home with the twins. During the drive, I asked Lily some careful questions about how things were going at home. "Do you like living with Jess and the twins?" "Yeah, I guess," she said, but she was staring out the window instead of looking at me. "Jess gets tired a lot, though. She says the twins need quiet time and I'm too loud sometimes. Do you feel happy at home, kiddo?" Lily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Daddy, am I going to have to go away to school?" My heart just broke. "What makes you think that?" I heard Jess talking to Grandma Susan about schools where kids live. And sometimes Jess looks at me like she's mad at me, but I don't know what I did wrong. I pulled over at a gas station because I couldn't drive safely anymore. My hands were shaking with rage. This woman was making my daughter feel unwanted in her own home, and now Lily was afraid of being sent away. "Listen to me, Lily," I said, turning around to look her in the eye. "You are never, ever going anywhere you don't want to go. You are my daughter. This is your home, and nobody gets to decide where you live except me. Do you understand?" She nodded, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Jessica had already planted seeds of doubt about whether she belonged in our family. That's when I knew I wasn't just fighting for my marriage anymore. I was fighting for my daughter's sense of security and self-worth, and I was going to destroy anyone who threatened that. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Told my foreman I had a family emergency, which wasn't exactly a lie. I spent the day doing reconnaissance and building my case. First stop, Lily's school. I set up a meeting with her teacher and the principal, told them I was considering some educational options, and wanted their honest assessment of Lily's needs. Both of them looked at me like I'd grown a second head when I mentioned boarding school. Mr. Morrison, Lily is thriving here, her teacher said. She's reading above grade level, gets along well with her classmates, and shows no signs of needing a more challenging environment. Is there a specific concern at home? I played it off as just exploring all options, but I could tell they were confused. Why would a parent want to send a perfectly happy, well-adjusted child away from home? I asked them to document our conversation and their professional opinions in writing, just in case. Next, I drove to that boarding school Jessica had been pushing. Told them I was interested in learning more for my 7-year-old daughter. The admissions lady was nice enough, but when I asked about their typical age ranges, she seemed surprised. We do have some younger students, but typically children who board with us at that age are either dealing with significant behavioral issues at home or their parents travel extensively for work, she said. Is there a particular reason you're considering residential education for such a young child? I made up some story about my work requiring travel, but I could tell she was skeptical. More importantly, she mentioned that they require extensive documentation about why a young child needs residential placement, including recommendations from teachers and sometimes social workers. Jessica had been presenting this like any parent could just drop their kid off at boarding school, but that wasn't reality. There would be interviews, evaluations, questions about our home life. Questions Jessica probably wasn't prepared to answer honestly. While I was there, I picked up all their enrollment materials and requirements. Knowledge is power, and I wanted to know exactly what Jessica thought she could pull off. That afternoon, I opened a separate checking account at a different bank and started moving money. Not huge amounts. I didn't want to trigger any alerts on our joint accounts yet, but enough to make sure I had resources if things went south quickly. I also gathered up all our important documents: tax returns, the twins' birth certificates, our marriage certificate, Lily's custody paperwork from when Sandra disappeared. Most importantly, I made copies of everything and stored them at my sister's house. By the time Jessica got home from work, I had a plan. Not just for defending against her boarding school idea, but for what came next if she pushed it. "How was your day?" she asked, like nothing had changed between us. "Fine," I said. "Actually, I've been thinking about what you said. About the boarding school." Her face lit up. "Really? I knew you'd come around once you thought about it rationally." "Yeah, I want to visit the school this weekend. See what they're all about." "That's wonderful. I'll call and set up a tour." I let her make the arrangements, let her think she was winning. But really, I was gathering intelligence and buying time to solidify my strategy. That night, after she went to bed, I started documenting everything I could remember about her treatment of Lily over the past year. Dates, specific incidents, witnesses who might have seen the favoritism. I wrote it all down in a notebook I kept hidden in my truck. I also started recording conversations with my phone. Ohio is a one-party consent state, meaning I could legally record any conversation I was part of without telling her. I wasn't sure if I'd ever need the recordings, but I wanted to be prepared. The next few days, I played the supportive husband role while Jessica made plans for our visit to the boarding school. She was so excited, talking about how this was going to solve all our problems, how much happier we'd all be. "Lily will make friends with children from similar backgrounds," she said one night over dinner, while Lily was sitting right there eating her mac and cheese. "She won't feel so different anymore." "Different from what?" Lily asked. Jessica got flustered. "Oh, just, you'll have more in common with the other kids there." I watched my daughter's face fall as she tried to figure out what was wrong with her that needed fixing. Jessica didn't even notice. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Jessica wanting Lily gone. She genuinely believed there was something wrong with our family dynamic, something that needed to be fixed by removing Lily from the equation. In her mind, she was the victim here, struggling to blend a family that was somehow fundamentally broken, which meant she'd never back down voluntarily. She'd dig in, escalate, and probably try to manipulate me into thinking I was the unreasonable one for wanting to keep my daughter home. Fine. If Jessica wanted to play hardball, I'd show her what hardball really looked like. The school visit was this past Saturday. I let Jessica take the lead, asking all her questions about curriculum and facilities while I hung back and observed. Lily seemed interested in some of the activities, especially their art studio, but I could tell she was confused about why we were there. On the drive home, Jessica was practically glowing with excitement. "See? Lily loved it. She was so engaged with everything they showed us." "She seemed to like the art stuff," I agreed. "And did you see how well-behaved all the other children were? So much more mature than the kids at her current school." I let her talk, nodding in the right places while Lily dozed in the back seat. But when we got home and Lily went inside to play, I made my first move. Jess, we need to talk about the practical side of this. What do you mean? The money. That place costs $35,000 a year. Where exactly do you think that's coming from? She hadn't thought about this part. I could see it on her face. Well, we'll figure it out. Maybe take out a loan or… With what collateral? The house is barely worth more than we owe on it. Our credit cards are already carrying balances from the twins' medical bills. This was all true. We weren't broke, but we weren't exactly rolling in cash either. There are scholarships, she said, but she sounded less confident now. Maybe. But most need-based scholarships require proof of financial hardship. We'd have to document why we can't afford regular school expenses. And merit scholarships? Well, Lily's smart, but she's not prodigy-level smart. She's just a normal kid doing well in a normal school. I watched Jessica's fantasy start crumbling as reality set in. She hadn't researched the financial side at all. We'll make it work, she said stubbornly. Will we? Because I've been looking at our budget, and we can't afford this without major sacrifices. We'd probably have to sell the house, move somewhere cheaper. Is that what you want for the twins? That hit her where it hurt. The house was Jessica's pride and joy. A nice 4-bedroom in a good neighborhood with great schools. The thought of downsizing because of boarding school expenses clearly hadn't occurred to her. You're being negative about this, she said. If we really wanted to make it work, I'm being realistic. But okay, let's say we find the money somehow. What happens when Lily comes home for holidays and weekends? She'll have been living with a completely different routine, different rules, different expectations. How do you think that's going to work with the twins? Jessica hadn't thought about this either. In her fantasy, Lily would just disappear during the week and reappear occasionally as a polite visitor. She'll adjust, Jessica said, but she didn't sound sure anymore. That night, I made my second move. I called my buddy Dave and officially asked for legal advice. Dave, I need to know what my options are if Jessica keeps pushing this boarding school thing. Honestly, Mike, as Lily's biological father with full custody, Jessica can't make decisions about her education without your consent. If you say no to boarding school, that's the end of it legally. But what if Jessica threatens to leave with the twins if I don't agree? Then she leaves with the twins. I know that sucks, but you can't make someone stay married to you. The good news is you'd probably get decent visitation rights with the boys, since you've been their stepfather for 2 years. And Lily? Lily stays with you, obviously. Jessica has no legal claim to her. This confirmed what I'd already figured out, but hearing it from a lawyer made it real. Jessica's only leverage was emotional manipulation. She couldn't actually force me to send Lily away. Dave, what if I wanted to file for divorce first, before Jessica escalates this further? You could, especially if you can document that she's trying to coerce you into decisions about your daughter's welfare. Courts don't like parents who use children as bargaining chips. That night, I made my decision. I wasn't going to wait for Jessica to give me an ultimatum. I was going to take control of the situation. Sunday morning, while Jessica was at church with the twins and Lily was watching cartoons, I drove to Dave's office. He'd agreed to meet me there to start drawing up divorce papers. You sure about this, Mike? Once we file, there's no taking it back quietly. I'm sure. She's making my daughter feel unwanted in her own home. That's unforgivable. Dave walked me through the process. Since we'd only been married 2 years and didn't have major shared assets, it would be relatively straightforward. The house was in my name from before the marriage. My truck was paid off. Her car was in her name. The only complicated part would be custody arrangements for the twins. I want to be fair about the boys, I told him. I love those kids. But I also want to make sure Jessica can't use them as leverage to control me. We structured everything to be as reasonable as possible. Joint custody of the twins with a standard visitation schedule. No alimony since we both had decent jobs. Jessica could keep her car and personal belongings, but the house stayed with me since it was mine before the marriage. We'll file tomorrow morning, Dave said. She'll be served by Tuesday afternoon. What about the boarding school thing? The divorce petition includes a temporary restraining order preventing either parent from making major decisions about the children's welfare without court approval. If she tries to push the boarding school issue during the proceedings, it'll make her look terrible to the judge. Perfect. Let Jessica try to explain to a family court judge why she thought a 7-year-old needed to be sent away from her father. I spent Sunday evening playing with all 3 kids, reading bedtime stories, trying to memorize how it felt when we were all together. Because by Tuesday, everything would be different. Jessica was served with divorce papers on Tuesday afternoon at her work. I know because she called me about 30 seconds later, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What the hell is this, Mike? It's exactly what it looks like. I'm filing for divorce. Over boarding school? Are you insane? We can work this out. No, Jess, we can't. This isn't about boarding school. This is about you trying to get rid of my daughter because she's inconvenient to your idea of a perfect family. The silence on the other end lasted about 10 seconds. Then she said something that proved I'd made the right choice. Fine, but don't think you're getting any access to my boys after this. My boys. Not our boys. Not the twins. My boys. Like they were possessions instead of children who'd been calling me daddy for 2 years. The court will decide that, I said, and hung up. That evening was tense. Jessica came home late after I'd already fed the kids and put them to bed. She'd clearly been crying, and I almost felt bad for her until she opened her mouth. I can't believe you're doing this to our family. I'm protecting our family, or at least the part of it that actually wants to stay together. You're being dramatic. Lots of kids go to boarding school and turn out fine. Lots of kids go to boarding school because their parents are military, or diplomats, or have some actual reason, not because their stepmother wants them gone. That's when Jessica finally dropped the act. You want the truth, Mike? Fine. I tried to love her like my own, I really did. But when I look at the twins, I feel this overwhelming maternal love. When I look at Lily, I just don't. I feel like I'm babysitting someone else's kid 24/7. I can't help it. So you decided the solution was to ship her off instead of getting therapy or admitting you need help. I thought if she was just gone during the week, I could be a better mother to my own children and a better wife to you on weekends. Your own children. There it is. Jessica started crying then, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were angry tears, frustrated tears, the tears of someone who'd been caught in their bullshit and didn't like it. You're making me out to be this monster, but I'm not. I tried to do what was best for everyone. You tried to do what was easiest for you. The next few days were a blur of lawyers and paperwork. Jessica hired her own attorney, some expensive guy her mother recommended, and started playing dirty almost immediately. First, she tried to claim that I was an unfit parent because I prioritized my biological child over the welfare of the family unit. Her lawyer actually put that in a filing, like caring about my daughter's emotional well-being was somehow a character flaw. Then she tried to argue that since I was the one filing for divorce, I was abandoning the twins and shouldn't get custody. Never mind that she was the one who'd been planning to break up our family by sending Lily away. But here's where Jessica's lack of planning bit her in the ass. Remember all that documentation I'd been gathering? The notes about differential treatment, the recordings of her conversations about wanting Lily gone, the testimony from Lily's teachers that there was no educational reason for boarding school? Dave presented all of it to the court as evidence that Jessica had been emotionally abusing my daughter and planning to remove her from the home against my wishes. Your Honor, Dave said during our first hearing, Mrs. Morrison has admitted in recorded conversations that she doesn't love the plaintiff's daughter and wants her removed from the home. She researched boarding schools without the father's knowledge or consent and has been documented treating the child differently than her biological children. This is exactly the kind of parental alienation that courts exist to prevent. Jessica's lawyer tried to argue that wanting boarding school wasn't abuse, but the judge wasn't buying it. Counselor, your client researched residential placement for a 7-year-old with no behavioral or educational issues, without consulting the child's father. She then tried to coerce him into agreement by threatening to leave with her biological children. This court takes a dim view of parents who use children as leverage in marital disputes. The temporary custody order gave me primary custody of Lily, obviously, and split custody of the twins 60-40 in my favor until the final hearing. Jessica lost her shit when she heard that. But the real nuclear bomb dropped the next week when my sister Karen called me. Mike, you need to know something. I ran into Jessica's friend Amanda at the grocery store yesterday. Amanda was Jessica's closest friend from work, someone who'd been to our house for dinner parties and knew our whole family situation. She seemed really uncomfortable when she saw me, Karen continued. But eventually she told me that Jessica has been complaining about Lily for months. Apparently she's been telling people that Lily has behavioral problems and that you refuse to get her help. What kind of behavioral problems? Lying, stealing, being aggressive with the twins? Amanda said Jessica made it sound like Lily was dangerous to be around. I felt sick. Jessica had been systematically destroying Lily's reputation among our mutual friends and acquaintances, probably setting up justification for the boarding school plan. Amanda said she always thought it was weird because Lily seemed like such a sweet kid the few times she'd met her, but she figured Jessica would know better since she lived with her. Did Amanda believe it? Not anymore. She said after she heard about the divorce and the boarding school stuff, she realized Jessica had been lying. She wanted me to tell you that if you need someone to testify about what Jessica was saying, she'd be willing. Another witness, another piece of evidence that Jessica had been planning this for much longer than she'd admitted. But the biggest revelation came when I was going through our joint credit card statements for the lawyer. I found charges to a child psychologist in the next town over. Someone I'd never heard of and definitely never agreed to take Lily to see. I called the office and asked to speak to the psychologist. Told them I was Lily's father and had some questions about her treatment. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison, but we don't have a Lily Morrison in our system. What about under Jessica Morrison? She's my wife. Let me check. Oh, yes. Mrs. Morrison has been coming in for consultations about parenting strategies for blended families, but she's never brought a child in for evaluation. Parenting strategies. Jessica had been seeing a therapist about how to deal with Lily, but she'd been lying about taking Lily for treatment. Can you tell me what kind of strategies you've been discussing? I'm sorry. I can't share specifics due to confidentiality, but I can tell you that Mrs. Morrison has been very concerned about establishing appropriate boundaries with her stepchild. Boundaries. Like shipping the kid off to boarding school. When I told Dave about this, he actually smiled. The first time I'd seen him smile during this whole process. Mike, this is huge. She's been building a paper trail to justify removing Lily, but she never actually had Lily evaluated by a professional. If there were real behavioral issues, any competent therapist would have insisted on seeing the child. The fact that she was only getting parenting strategies shows this was about her discomfort, not Lily's needs. Everything was falling into place. Jessica's entire plan was unraveling, and she was starting to panic. The final custody hearing was scheduled for last Friday. By that point, Jessica had fired her expensive lawyer and hired someone cheaper, which told me she was running out of money to fight this thing. The week before the hearing, she made one last desperate play. She called me Thursday night, crying and apologetic, complete 180 from her previous attitude. Mike, I've been thinking about everything, and I was wrong. So wrong. I don't want Lily to go to boarding school. I want us to be a family again. It's too late for that, Jess. No, it's not. I'll go to therapy. I'll work on my relationship with Lily. I'll be better, I promise. You had months to be better. You chose to plan behind my back instead. I was overwhelmed and scared, and I made bad decisions. But I love you, and I love all our kids, even Lily. The thing is, part of me wanted to believe her. 2 years of marriage doesn't just disappear, and I did love the woman I thought she was. But then I remembered Lily asking me if she was going to be sent away, and my resolve hardened. If you really love Lily, you'll make this divorce as easy as possible and focus on being a good co-parent to the twins. Please, Mike, I'm begging you, don't destroy our family over this. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting my daughter from someone who sees her as a problem to be solved instead of a child to be loved. Friday morning, we went to court for the final hearing. Jessica showed up looking like hell. Red eyes, wrinkled clothes, clearly hadn't slept much. Her new lawyer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dave presented our case methodically. The documentation of differential treatment, the recordings of Jessica talking about not loving Lily, the testimony from Lily's teachers that boarding school was unnecessary, the credit card records showing Jessica had been consulting a therapist about boundary issues with her stepchild. Then he called Amanda as a witness. Amanda testified that Jessica had been telling people for months that Lily had behavioral problems, was difficult to manage, and that I was in denial about needing professional help for her. She said Jessica had made it sound like Lily was dangerous to have around the twins. But when I interacted with Lily at family gatherings, Amanda said, she seemed like a normal, well-behaved child. She was always polite, played nicely with the other kids, never caused any problems. I started to realize that maybe the issue wasn't Lily's behavior. Jessica's lawyer tried to cross-examine Amanda, but there wasn't much he could do. She was Jessica's own friend, testifying that Jessica had been lying about Lily to justify her boarding school plan. Then the judge asked to speak to Lily privately in his chambers. This was the part I'd been dreading. Lily was only 7, and I hated putting her in the middle of this. But the judge needed to understand her perspective. They were in there for about 20 minutes. When they came back, Lily looked okay. Not upset or scared, just serious. The judge looked, well, he looked pissed. In my 15 years on the family court bench, the judge said, I have rarely seen such a clear case of attempted parental alienation. Mrs. Morrison, your plan to remove this child from her home had no basis in educational necessity, behavioral problems, or family welfare. It was based solely on your personal discomfort with your role as a stepmother. Jessica started crying again, but the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, your attempts to justify this plan by spreading false information about the child's behavior demonstrates a disturbing willingness to damage a young child's reputation to serve your own ends. This court finds that your actions constitute emotional abuse and parental alienation. The judge awarded me full custody of Lily, no surprise there, and 70-30 custody of the twins, with Jessica responsible for all transportation during her visitation times. He also ordered family therapy for the twins to help them adjust to the divorce, and individual therapy for Jessica to address her boundary issues with stepchildren. But the real kicker came at the end. Mrs. Morrison, I am also ordering that any future discussions about educational placement for the minor child Lily Morrison must be approved by this court. You are specifically prohibited from suggesting, researching, or advocating for residential educational placement without clear documentation of educational necessity from qualified professionals. Basically, the judge banned Jessica from ever bringing up boarding school again. Jessica's lawyer tried to argue for a lighter custody arrangement, but the judge shut him down. Counselor, your client spent months planning to remove a child from her home based on personal preference rather than the child's welfare. She then attempted to coerce the father's agreement through threats of marital dissolution. This court cannot and will not reward such behavior with generous custody arrangements. When we walked out of the courthouse, Jessica was sobbing in the hallway. Her mother was there, shooting me dirty looks like this was somehow my fault. Dave shook my hand and said, Mike, I've never seen a family court judge that angry at a parent's behavior. You made the right choice. Final update, 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and life is better than I ever imagined. I can't believe I once thought staying married was the right choice. Lily is thriving. Her grades improved, she's made new friends, joined the art club, and won a local drawing contest. Most importantly, she's not walking on eggshells in her own home anymore. No more asking if she's being too loud or feeling like she has to earn her place in the family. She knows she's wanted and loved. The custody arrangement with the twins works better than expected. Jessica brings them over every other weekend and one evening weekly. The visits were awkward initially, but kids adapt. The twins adore Lily, calling her big sister and getting excited every time they see her. She's amazing with them, patient, caring, always willing to play whatever game they're obsessed with. Watching them together, you'd never know they didn't share the same parents. Jessica is struggling. 3 months ago, she called crying, fired from the hospital for interpersonal conflicts. She begged for a job reference, but I refused. I can't recommend someone who's willing to emotionally abuse children to get what they want. 2 months ago, she wanted more custody time because she was lonely. I asked if this was what's best for the boys, or just trouble adjusting to consequences. She couldn't answer. Last month was the kicker. Jessica proposed we remarry for practical reasons. I laughed out loud. The boys need a stable home, she argued, and I could do better with Lily. I've been going to therapy. We were never good together, I replied. I just didn't realize how bad it was until you tried to get rid of my daughter. I told her about the list I found in Lily's backpack, a 7-year-old's desperate attempts to earn approval. Be quieter, help more with babies, don't ask for homework help. At the bottom, maybe if I'm really good, Jess won't send me away. You didn't make mistakes, I continued. You made choices. You chose to see Lily as an obstacle instead of a child needing love. Jessica thought I'd eventually realize how hard single parenting was and come crawling back. But I was already essentially a single parent during our marriage, doing all the emotional labor for Lily while she focused on the twins. I've started dating Sarah, a teacher from Lily's school, who understands that my daughter comes first. When Lily asked if Sarah would be her new mom, she added, I like her. She doesn't make me feel like I have to be quiet. That broke my heart and put it back together. Jessica forced me to choose between my wife and my daughter. I chose my daughter every time, and I'd make the same choice without hesitation. Jessica got exactly what she wanted, a family without Lily. I hope it was worth it. I've got my daughter, partial custody of 2 boys I love, and a woman who understands that family means showing up and choosing to love those who depend on you. Lily's never going to boarding school or wonder if she's wanted. That's a promise I'll keep forever.